And welcome. Good morning to this edition of the Vision Alignment Show, where we all understand that we have blindness in our lives. Sometimes we need to take those blinders off and be able to see what's ahead of us. But there are other times where those blinders prove to be beneficial because those blinders keep us focused on our vision. And if we can stay focused on our vision, we can stay focused on our core beliefs, what our core strengths, our core values are telling us that we need to focus on. Then we're going to be able to go so much farther. We're going to be able to be so much happier, and we're going to be more successful. We've got a great show lined up for you today. But I also want to tell you about the calls that are going to the meetings that are coming up after this, shows that are coming up after this. We've got great stuff coming. I'll tell you about that at the end. But without any further ado, I want to bring on our guest for today. This is none other than Andrew Davis.
Hey, hey, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
It's the hockey horn. You know, it makes every Friday morning better. It's Casual Friday over here, by the way.
Yeah, good. Well, you've got a jacket on, so you're.
Well, I tried to spruce it up just for your show because it's, you know. That's
good. Tell me, Andrew, when is your first recollection of knowing your vision?
It was 1981. I lived in Houston, Texas, and I was watching Sesame Street at like 8 in the morning. And before the show was over, I was like, I want to work with the Muppets. That's my life dream and goal, and that was it.
Wow. If you want to hear more, stay right there. The Muppets.
The Muppets.
That
was the Muppets.
Great. Hey, before we get into that, I want to encourage everybody that's on the show to understand how important it is to share this video out with as many people as you can think of. Do that on your timelines. That would be great. Also, put a picture of you winking in your timeline. And yes, right? Exactly. I want to see you wink. So if you wink, you can begin to understand how important it is that to know what makes you unique. And I know what makes me unique, and it's not my eye. What makes me unique is my positive personality. I want to be able to share my story with other people in order to have a lasting impact on their lives. So tell us what makes you unique. Put that picture in your timeline. Tag me, Brian Wagner, and put a hashtag of Brian with one eye. That's me. And a hashtag of winking without Wagner. Thank you very much for doing that. Share this video out. Also, if you want to get more connected with me, go to brianwagner.live and I'll be there. Thank you. Andrew, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, of course.
This is awesome. So tell me more about your story and how you got to where you got to where you got. I'm not sure that's good grammar.
It doesn't matter.
Of doing live shows. But tell us, a little bit more about your story.
Yeah, well, so if I pick up the story in 1981, I had just moved to Houston, Texas, and I was so excited about the Muppets, and I thought, I want to be part of that. I want to teach kids in a fun, entertaining way. Puppets were like, just magical to me, so I started my own magic and marionette show. It was called M&M Puppet Theater, and I used to do puppet shows for kids. Birthday parties for $50, to make a little money. I took a refrigerator box, covered it in vinyl. My parents helped me turn it into a little puppet theater that we would truck around every weekend for these birthday parties and magic shows. It was tons and tons of fun. And if you fast forward, I went to college for television and film because I wanted to work at the Muppets. I wrote papers. Anytime I had to write a paper about a television show, it was about, kids TV, like Puzzle Place and Sesame Street and Beekman's World and Ernest. You remember Ernest? Like Ernest Goes to Camp? Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I wrote a whole paper about Ernest and the Earnest effect, which is basically, this is the Earnest effect. It's like a wide angle lens where he talks into the camera. That's the Earnest effect. So I got a job in television right out of school. I was working at a local television station, and then I worked for a company that did satellite uplinks for the networks and started producing for a bunch of television networks. And then I actually got the job at the Jim Henson Company because for 3 years, every month, I wrote a handwritten letter to someone at the Jim Henson Company, and I would FedEx it to them. And that was a lot of money for me as a kid just starting out in television, where I was making no money. I think I was making $17,000 or $18,000 a year. FedExing something once a month was like an investment, but it was an investment in my vision for the future. So I thought it was worth doing. Eventually, I got a call from a guy named Peter Van Roden, and Peter said, "Hey, Andrew, look, I appreciate you sending all these letters. Very kind of you. We don't have any open positions, so please stop sending the letters. You're wasting your money." And I said, "Peter, no problem. I will stop sending the letters if you just give me a half-hour meeting." And he said, "Fine. I'll see you on Monday in New York City." I was living in Boston at the time. He said, "Come on down and I'll give you a half hour." That half hour turned into like an hour and a half meeting. And at the end of the meeting, he offered me a job. I needed to start in 2 weeks as the person in charge of the production workshop, the Muppet Workshop, where they made the puppets. So I packed up everything, quit my job, moved down to New York, and I got my dream job working at the Muppets in the late 1990s.
That is awesome.
That was the dream.
What a great story.
It was fun.
I'll bet.
I mean, it's kind of got a mixed ending. Like the job actually turned out to not be a great job. It was not a good time for the Jim Henson Company in the late 90s. They were struggling. I worked on Muppets from Space. Did you ever see that movie, Brian?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Did you like it?
I saw it.
Yeah. Enough said. Muppets from Space was not a great movie. They had just finished Elmo and Grouchland, another bad movie that I worked on. So they were struggling a little bit. I worked on Bear in the Big Blue House. That was the best show we worked on.
Where is Shadow?
There you go. Oh, look, Bear in the Big Blue House. So like the company was struggling, and the job I had was a really tough job. It was kind of like one of those jobs where somebody hands you an assignment that's impossible to execute on, and like no matter what you do, you're just thwarted. And so I left the Jim Henson Company, but the highlight of my 2 years at the Jim Henson Company was I met my wife there, my now wife. It was a great experience. I'm really glad I did it. And I learned everything I ever needed to learn about marketing at the Jim Henson Company. I just didn't realize it until about 10 years later. So it was a pretty amazing experience.
So you're not a marketer by trade, by degree?
Well, I have two careers. So like I spent like half of my career in television and film and the other half in marketing. So basically after I left the Jim Henson Company, it was the .com boom. Remember late 1990s when everybody was pets.com was spending $1 billion on advertising. It was the hottest thing ever. Everybody had a .com domain. So I had friends who had left television and they were working at .com startups and they were making like 4 times as much as me. And I would call them and say, like, what are you doing at these .com startups? And they would basically say, I don't really know, but they pay a lot. You should get a job in marketing, telling stories. And I was like, oh, all right. If that's the case, like I can do that. So I basically left the Jim Henson Company. I worked for a couple of startups, 3 or 4 startups that got sold and acquired and shut down and lost all their funding. It was such a roller coaster. And at one point I had been let go from a job, and a friend of mine, Jim Costco, who was actually a television journalist and a great videographer, he called me up and said, hey man, I lost my job too. You want to play some video games? And I was like, yeah, let's play some video games. And my wife thought it was like the worst idea, like hanging out with a college buddy playing video games all day. But eventually Jim and I said, you know what, let's start our own marketing agency. Like we know what we're doing. We can tell stories. And so in 2001, we started our own marketing agency, not knowing anything about marketing. And we sold it in 2012. And since then, I've just been writing books and speaking all over the world. It's been fun.
Wow. Huh. That is awesome. I love that story. Yeah.
None of that would have happened without the Muppets, by the way. It just wouldn't have. So I think you know, having a vision of what your future is supposed to look like is really awesome. You know, you're looking down the road and you've got kind of this vision of where you want to head. But I always tell people it's more like a quest. You know, it's an adventure, and there are going to be twists and turns that take you in directions you've never imagined. But all that cumulative knowledge you're gathering with every little experience someday is going to come back and benefit you. Like I was a child actor. You know, I did television commercials when I was a kid, and opera and musical theater. Fun fact: I was in Oklahoma, the musical with John Schneider from the Dukes of Hazzard, which was a big deal when I was a kid.
Where the wind comes whistling down the plains?
He was whistling down the plains.
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, where the wind comes whistling down the plains. It was a great show. But you know, I never thought I'd ever use what I learned as a kid as an actor until all of a sudden I was invited to speak at events, and I was like, wait a second. I remember things I learned, like I need to have proper diction, and I should like just the basics that I learned acting. So you know, I think we all need to remember that like all the cumulative experiences people have are what make them unique and valuable to us as an organization.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think that we all can take from that. Everybody listening, please, you know, think about how you can take from what you're doing right now and make something of it. You may not even make something of it, but you'll at least have that memory, that process you went through, where it's more like lifting weights. So sometimes just being in the gym and lifting the weights, it does you good. You don't always realize it right at the time. So that's great advice. Thank you.
Very true. Hi, Linda. I see Linda's there. Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning, Linda. And yes, thank you very much for pointing that out. You're good.
Okay. Hey, I'm just trying to. Hey, Linda, what a nice profile picture.
Yeah, that's a picture of her in front of a stairway with her husband, Greg. Yeah, right. It's an eye.
I like it.
Yeah, so it's good. Wow. There are so many questions that I have. What do you think the biggest factor in your success is?
I think oh man, that's a tough question. I would say there's probably 3 things that have kind of typified my experience and still kind of chart my course, like when I'm moving forward. It is kind of constant curiosity. Like I'm constantly wondering the backstory to things. Like the other day, I was actually curious about where the word coach came from. Like coach in the term, like in the common terminology, not just a sports coach, but like coach for your career or speaking coach or whatever. And so I did a bunch of research about that, and it turns out it was used in Oxford, England, with a big, like very complicated course. They called the course the test, the Tricera. Like that kind of curiosity, you know, I think it's benefited me well. Like I just constantly looking for a deeper answer to every question that I come up with or other people ask. So that's number one. Like the constant curiosity is a big deal. I think the second thing is like a willingness to experiment. So, I like to try new things constantly, career-wise, work-wise. I'm not really afraid of trying something at least once. And if it doesn't work, I always learn something from it. And I've probably learned more from the kind of mistakes and mishaps than I have from anything else. And the third thing is like a deep desire to find the patterns behind things. Like even when I sold Tipping Point Labs and started to be invited to speak all over the place, and I thought, this is a good challenge for me. Instead of sitting around in my underpants watching Judge Judy marathons, like maybe I should try to learn about speaking. And so I just started. There's nothing wrong with that unless you're asking my wife. She was like, "You can't sit around in your underpants all day watching Judge Judy." I was like, "I can't. That seems pretty fun." So I had to, I spent a lot of time watching the best speakers I could think of, live and in person and online, and I would kind of dissect how their minds worked and their speeches worked, and I'd make lots of notes, and then I try to find patterns in what it looked like the audience was really enjoying, and then I try it. So I think it's those three things, like constant curiosity, trying to ask a deeper, better question, really looking for the kind of meta idea behind the insight, and being willing to experiment and try new things.
So tell us what you have experimented with or tried recently.
Oh my Lord. Well, I mean, I would say the last year has been kind of a giant experiment for me.
Yeah.
I like, as a speaker, I made my living on the road, doing 55 or 60 events a year, traveling about 200 days a year all over the world. And all of a sudden last April, when everything kind of shut down, and all the events that I had booked either became virtual or, canceled or moved to this year, I had to experiment. And, I experimented with trying to build like a better online virtual experience by using all my television knowledge and background. But it took a lot of experimenting because, like I said, I hadn't touched a television camera or a switcher or any of the technical stuff since 1999. So a lot has changed, by the way. It turns out I've learned.
Really?
So I mean, like when I think about the fact that we used to have to record on tape, like actually roll tape.
Yeah.
And now there's no tape, and you just put it, and we just use a DSLR camera or your phone or whatever. So it's been a year of that. And then my Loyalty Loop video series, which I do every week, is a constant experimentation. I use that content that I create every week to try to investigate one of these questions that I want answered for myself. And it forces me to go on a journey to find an answer that I never would have found. So, I'm constantly trying new stuff, not just with that, but trying new ideas out on an audience and trying to listen to what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I am a Loyalty Loop listener and a watcher. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But how would people find more information about Loyalty Loop? Is that Andrew Davis?
You can you can go to loyaltyloopers.com. That's the exclusive access to the club there. And if you use the secret code Wink. What is it? Winking with Brian?
Winking with Wagner.
Winking with Wagner. That's way better. I love alliteration. If you use the secret code Winking with Wagner, I'll send you guys a discount to a book or something. How's that? So Winking with Wagner is the secret code. You can get right into Loyalty Loopers, and I'll send you next week's Loyalty Loop. But you can find it on YouTube. I mean, if you search Google for Loyalty Loop and Andrew Davis, you'll find the 179 videos or something I've done over the last 2 years.
Is that the right URL?
Yes. That's it. Look at that. You're so fancy with the scroll. I don't have a scroll. All I have is a horn. No, I also have applause. So.
Oh, very good. That's good. I have some funny sounds, but we don't need to go in that. That's another story for another time.
Totally a different show.
Right. So, what does that? How does that make you feel? How does doing all this, and moving forward and doing such a great job? And I love what you're doing with Loyalty Loop. But how does that impact you here?
Well, it's like a roller coaster
Yeah.
because experimenting is hard. It's not easy, and so I'm actually writing a book with our friend Michael Port called The Referable Speaker, and we actually talk about kind of one of the core principles is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that's what experimentation is. Like if you're willing to get out of your comfort zone, try something new, it makes the next step in your quest, in your journey, a lot easier because you've tried something and it worked or didn't work. But if you're unwilling to get uncomfortable, it makes everything really difficult. And so the more I experiment and the more I try and the more I succeed or fail, I think the better I get at understanding what's working and what's not. Like I have a very simple process that works for me in hearing whether ideas are resonating with my audience. And so it's basically I investigate a question, then I aerate the ideas that I've learned or the conclusions I've come to, and then I amplify what the audience tells me worked, which means basically I just wait for them to regurgitate what stuck out in a video or a speech or a conversation. And then I lean into that thing and I go around the circle again. I investigate that thing a little bit deeper to see if it works or not. So like this week, I ordered a burger from Mr. Beast Burger as an experiment to find out how somebody that started a YouTube channel with 59 million subscribers and knows nothing about making burgers can launch a massive franchise of 400 locations of a burger joint in one day and sell 1 million burgers in 3 months. I was fascinated. And so I wanted to figure out why it worked. And in the video, I went and investigated it. And it turns out the audience is really interested in it, but they also really want to know how a business can apply the same thing. So this week I started investigating another question like, oh, okay, well, Mr. Beast can do it because he does crazy stunts on YouTube and has 60 million followers. But what if you sell boring packaging? Well, then I'm going to go try to figure out if that's if that's possible. And it turns out, by the way, I found someone. So next week I'm going to hopefully explain how. She sells boxes, and she's made a huge number of fans online. It's a really cool business. It's called Lumi, and so if you want to check out her YouTube channel, it's awesome.
Lumi, L-O-M-M-Y.
No, L as in Lori, U-M-I.
Oh, okay.
Lumi.
I was way off.
Lumi, they're like basically a packaging service provider. So if you sell a product and you want to send it in a box or a pack or a bag to your customers, they help you do that in like environmentally friendly way. But her YouTube channel is like mind-numbingly awesome, and it looks like it's working. So it's very cool.
Awesome, I love it.
I'd buy a burger from her. Hi, Randall.
And Randall likes your creativity.
I like Randall's hat, man.
Randall is a story in himself. Randall is a speaker as well, and he impersonates Will Rogers.
Oh, that's why he's wearing the hat. That's so cool.
And he is in front of the statue of Will in I think it's Oklahoma. So,
I get it.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Well, welcome, Randall. What a great hook, man. I love that.
Yeah. He's good. He is very good. Oh, wow. So where else can we take this?
Am I overwhelming you, Brian? I feel like I'm just throwing out too much stuff.
So you talked about the imagination, creation.
Investigate, aerate, and amplify. Those are the three steps I kind of go through.
And those steps are for creativity, creating things.
It's for like that. Yeah, it's for it's kind of the way I try to approach that experimentation you were asking about. Like when I want to try to experiment, it makes the experimentation less risky to me because I know there's an end goal in sight, right? Like go and do some investigation, ask some questions, then share what you've learned by aerating it, and then see what people respond to and go one level deeper.
Huh.
It ends up being like a spiral.
Yeah.
You know,
So
you just kind of go deeper and deeper.
yeah, that's great. I mean, I love the idea. You must have a lot of listeners, a lot of followers already to help you with that. Or do you have an inside group that you typically go to?
Well, I would say a little bit of both. You know, I do have a large kind of fan base that is happy to share and reshare ideas that they find interesting, and so I'm always looking at those. Like, what do people say? You know, what do people pick up and then regurgitate and share with other people? Because that's a signal that they found it valuable, and they so valuable they wanted to share it with someone else. And then I have a second series of, I would say, close-knit friends and trusted confidants that I know will be honest with me. So, in fact, every Friday I have a call with one of them, my friend Ann Hanley, and you know, we spend an hour on the phone, kind of talking through like what we've tried and what we've experimented with, what we're struggling with or working on, so that I can get some honest feedback about what she thinks is working or not working, and bounce ideas off her that I haven't tried with anyone else. So I think it takes both. You need a trusted group, and just listening to your fans can turn you into an echo chamber, you know?
Yeah.
Because you're just picking up what they're regurgitating. And so it's nice to have an outside source and a constant new audience to test with.
Are you familiar with the National Speakers Association?
Sure. Yeah. I spoke at the Influence event last year. It was really fun.
Oh, you were there last year?
Well, it was the virtual one
Ah.
in May or whatever last year. Yeah, I did a session there that was all about this, actually, Brian. It was all about this idea. It was basically the idea was to limit yourself less and ask more questions.
Wow. So how do we put that into practice?
Well, you got to start by asking a big question. So the lesson from that session, actually, the one thing I want people to go do right now is ask a question Google can't answer. So, you know, if you want to, we were talking about leadership earlier. So if you can Google like how to be a better leader and find 5,000, you know, reasons and ways to do it, it's not the right question to answer probably with your unique perspective. You have to ask a better question. So I start with, to be honest, I start with stuff that bothers me. So when I see advice that's like, for example, one of my most popular sessions in the last 2 years or 3 years has been, it's called the curiosity factor. And that whole speech and the whole idea came from reading too many blog posts and articles and watching too many videos where they said the best length for a video is 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And the best length for a blog post is between 800 and 1,000 words. And the best length for a tweet is like 86 characters, not 140. Everybody had this list. And I got so infuriated because what angered me was I knew that while they were telling you your video could only be 2 minutes and 30 seconds if you wanted people to watch it, these same people were watching Netflix for 2 days straight. They were binge watching Bridgerton, and it has nothing to do with the fact that it's short. No, it's long. Like it's 12 hours of Bridgerton or Tiger King, right? Like 6 hours of a guy with no arm, like chasing a cat around. Like if that's so I made a whole speech about how it doesn't matter how long it is. You've got to look at the content itself, and you've got to create curiosity. That's the key to getting people to watch or consume content, no matter how long it is. And so the question I asked myself was like, why are they giving this advice when they're also watching Netflix shows that are, you know, 5 hours long? Or two seasons worth of a show in a weekend. It's not because the content is higher quality, because there's plenty of great quality content out there. It's because they understand how to construct content that actually captures your attention and keeps it for as long as possible. And so then the next question I asked was, well, how do they do that? How does Netflix keep your attention? How does a television producer keep your attention? And that's that I dove into that.
Interesting. Wow. There's so much for thought. If anybody has any questions specifically, ask them in the comment section. I'd love to.
Yeah, for sure.
What you have. This is good. So, man, we're already almost at the end of our time. Oh my
I
God.
know, right? Time flies when you're curious.
All right. So
Mhm.
we'll work on that. Um, can I ask?
It really. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask? Would you be willing to come back and have another round of this?
Yeah, definitely. I'm
Okay.
going on vacation the first week of May, but yeah, we could do it sometime this summer. That would
Yeah.
be
Okay.
awesome.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do the follow up to the follow up.
All right. There you go. Perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Thank
Of
you.
course. Yeah. Thank you for doing the show. This is really great.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. So I'm going to wave you off, but if you would stay in the green room for just a few minutes, and if I'll come back and I'll talk to you a little bit
I'll
more.
see you there.
All
You
right.
got it. Bye,
Sounds good.
everyone.
All
Bye,
right.
Randall and
Thanks,
Linda.
Andrew. Oh my gosh. Wow. So much to think about. But great shows coming up. We have at 11:30 today. We have Greg Cini coming back from the Worthington Memory Care House, talking about disabilities from an Alzheimer's and dementia perspective. A different slant on all this, but also we have coming up on Monday. Oh my gosh, we have Jason Hewlett coming up, and Jason Hewlett is a great entertainer and speaker. So I'm looking forward to having him on. Tuesday we have Jess Pettit coming. And Jess Pettit is a phenomenal speaker when it comes to diversity, inclusion, and equity. And then finally, well, not finally, Wednesday, we have Nito Cobain. Wow. Mind blown. So great shows coming up. As always, I appreciate all of you being on. And thank you very much for all that you do. If there's ever anything I can do for you, by all means, let me know. And as always, keep one eye on the road. Bye.